Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about my Beretta PX4 Storm, which is another gun that I got a lot of requests for after I uploaded a shooting video last fall, and I'm happy to oblige in this case because this actually is one of my favorite 9mm, believe it or not. I originally got it just because it was cheap, I think it looks cool, and I kind of thought, probably not going to like it. Seems like a generic 9mm plastic combat gun. It's cheap, probably just going to shoot it for a little bit and sell it. But I ended up falling in love with it after the first time I shot it, and I still have it, and it's gone on to become one of my favorites. It's based on the Beretta 8000/Cougar, which was a Beretta design introduced in the 1990s, which was different because it had an alloy frame. It didn't have this kind of space age look going on. In 2004, they came out with the PX4 Storm as a successor to that, but this is the full-size version. Nowadays, it comes in several different sizes and configurations and calibers and everything. This one is a full-size, like I said. There's also a compact and a subcompact. The subcompact does not have the rotating barrel, which is one of the cool things about this gun, and I'll talk about that shortly. It doesn't use the John Browning tilting barrel system that most guns do. Another reason why I picked it up, because it's not just a regular old gun. So the subcompact does not have that system. It does use this tilting barrel. It comes in 9, 40, and 45, so you got different caliber options there, and there are a few different trigger configurations also. This one is the F configuration, which is a DA/SA, double action, single action, with a decocker safety. There's also a C model, which is a constant action, which tries to replicate the Glock a little bit. Every trigger pull is the same. It's kind of like the H&K LEM. And there's the D, which is double action only, and then finally there's the G, which is double action, single action, and just a decocker up here, no safety. So there's all those different configurations and combinations you can do, and you can also get it with an inox slide, which means it's a stainless slide, which is another dimension to the aesthetics of it. So between all of those, lots of different things going on. There's also a 45 model called the SD Special Duty, which has a tan frame, and the barrel is extended to allow you to thread it for a suppressor or any kind of other muzzle accessory that you want to put on there. A few different other little tricks too. It's supposed to compete with the USP Tacticals and HK45 Tacticals, FN Tacticals, things like that. So it's more of a tactical oriented gun. So I'll talk about the size. Like I said, this is the full size version, so it's the biggest of all of them. I mean, it's 9mm, so it's not as big as a 45, but it's bigger than the compacts and everything, obviously. Weight is 28.1 ounces, which makes it not exactly light. It's not as light as the Glocks, but it's also not as heavy as some of the other ones. It's sort of in the middle of the spectrum as far as weight goes with these polymer combat guns. Pulled out my Glock 7 to do a quick comparison, and you can see, I'm just kidding, it's not a Glock 7, it's a 17. It is a full-size gun. It's about the same size as that. Maybe a little bit shorter in the overall length, but not by much. And there's the width. You can see it's maybe a little bit wider, particularly in these bat wings that are the safety decocker. I'll talk about those in a minute, but it is a little bit chunkier, definitely heavier. And I'll compare it to the old Beretta Stalwart, the 92. Which these really don't have much relation whatsoever, considering this is polymer, rotating barrel. It does have the same trigger group, though, is what I've been told, or what I've read. And generally they have the same sort of slide safety. This one does not, but you can see the size there. 92 is certainly bigger, and it's a little bit thicker also. So you can kind of just get an idea there. Bore axis is lower on here, too. You can see that the slide is not as tall as it is in the 92. So the PX4, it looks a little bit chunky when you first pick it up, I think, but it really isn't that bad. You saw it compared to the Glock. The thing that makes it large, sort of as far as a carry gun goes, are these bat wings. I'll talk about ergonomics now. These are the safety decockers, and it's my biggest criticism of the gun in general, is that they're gigantic. I don't like the safety decocker on the slide to begin with, just because it usually interferes with racking the slide. Also because it's a safety and a decocker, rather than just if you're racking the slide and you accidentally flip it down, you need to remember to flip it back up, otherwise you have a dead trigger, which I don't think is a good thing. You can actually modify these, though, with the G parts and swap out some different parts. You can also put in stealth profile decocker levers to make it decock only, which means when you flip it down, it'll pop back up, and then you have a trigger again. And then also the levers are smaller, which I think is a good thing. These levers, they stick out quite a bit, which makes it more difficult to carry, a little bit less comfortable. And also I've found there have been times where I'm trying to do a press check with these handy forward slide serrations, and my handles slip off, and my handles slide back and catch on those. It's kind of sharp. Same thing back here. They just feel a little bit pointy and jagged. They do help a little bit. You can actually rack the slide kind of like that and just grasp around them, but I don't think that's ideal. And like I said, what happens is if you accidentally flip that down, then you have a dead gun. So that's one control, and my biggest criticism about the gun in general is that giant control there. Other controls, you have a slide release right here, which I like the style of the gun overall, but that slide release seems a little bit bolted on, kind of like an afterthought. But it works. It's not too big, very easy to reach. I think it works pretty well as a control. Mag release there, which is ambidextrous if you get the right parts. And if you think this is too small, which some people do, you can actually, there are 3 different sizes. And you just call Beretta up or go to their website and order the different size. And they'll give you, you can order different sizes for that. There is a rail up front for different accessories. Any other controls? I'll show you the sight picture. 3 dots. There's the rear and the front. Nothing too exciting, it's not focusing, but you know what a 3-dot sight picture is. The magazines on these are not interchangeable with the 92, which is a knock that a lot of people have just because so many people have 92 mags lying around. You can't use those in the PX4 Storm. There are different grip panels for the back, which is nice because out of the box it was a little bit small for me, so it comes with 2. It comes with the regular size one and a larger one. Right now I have the larger one mounted on here, which feels a lot better to me. It fills up my hand better. I generally like fatter grips that fill up my hand, and that helps with that. It's a little bit annoying to try to change them out because you have to pull this tab out, which is hard, and it's just the process is kind of tedious and annoying. So once you get it in there, you don't want to do it again, but let's look at it from the front there. So overall, I really do like the design of it. The look of it is very cool. It's got a futuristic techno look, sort of, with these swoopy angles, which are intended to help it slide into holsters and whatnot, snag-free. It's supposed to be sort of a molten look that just kind of slips in without getting caught on stuff. On the plus side, there is a lot of real estate here to grab onto to rack the slide. Despite these giant levers here, there's a lot of serrations here, and then there's some in the front, which I mentioned earlier. Sometimes my hand slips off, but it's still nice to have this much area to grab onto to rack the slide, so it's not difficult. If you've seen my review on the IWI Jericho 941 Baby Eagle, it's got a lot of different names, but my biggest gripe was that it had these slide-mounted safety levers, safety decocker levers, but also zero real estate to actually grab onto the slide to rack it. It's not the case in the PX4, fortunately. Plenty of area to grab onto, and you can even just grab it there and pull it back. It's not ideal, but it works. So that's a good thing. So I mentioned earlier that the Beretta uses a unique rotating barrel system, which is something you don't really see in any other handguns nowadays, at least. And it's a shame because it's a really cool system and it works great in this gun, I think, compared to the traditional Browning short recoil tilting barrel design that you see in 99% of other handguns that are out there. And I'll show you real quickly how it works. Watch this barrel. I got it cocked to make it easier on myself, but I want to push both the barrel and the slide back together at the same time as if it were shooting. And you see the barrel rotates just a little bit? They travel together for a short distance while the barrel rotates. It rotates until some locking lugs are out of the way and the slide is then free to keep recoiling and go backwards, extract around, chamber the next one, it comes back, and then it recoils, or then it rotates it back into position. So again, you can sort of see that rotating barrel right there. And I'll talk about it more in shooting dynamics, but it really does a lot to dissipate felt recoil. It's moving all in line. There are no up and down movements and things like that. So it's supposed to contribute to accuracy and to longevity, durability, because the way the parts interact in here, there's just not as much movement. It's all just in a straight line. The parts that are stressed are reinforced for added durability and reliability also. And I'll show you the takedown procedure too, so you can see what it looks like on the inside. Takedown is pretty much like a Glock. Drop a mag, have these 2 little levers here, and you don't have to pull the trigger or anything, which is nice. So slide it on off, and you got your 2 halves. I'll let you look at the slide for a second. Nothing too exciting there. You have the slide rails, not overly long, probably about industry standard. And you got the hammer, of course. It's hammer fired, not striker. And then here's where the rotating magic happens. This is the slide. It looks quite a bit different than most slides that you see. This is the lug piece that keeps everything together. So I'm going to take that off so you can see what's actually going on. You'll see on the underside here, there's this lug that sticks up. Come on, focus. There it is. That right there. And that's what guides the barrel. It keeps the barrel and slide together at first, and then it lets it unlock. Because at the beginning, it's right in here, and the slide and barrel are locked together right now. So like I'm pushing the barrel forward, and it's not coming apart. But as the slide and barrel recoil, while that piece stays stationary, it forces this to rotate like that. And now the barrel is unlocked from the slide. And the slide keeps going backwards, comes back, and that piece forces that back into rotation, and then once again it's locked up. It's a really cool system. And the only problem, really, the only downside in my opinion with it, at least that I've come across, is that you can't really mount a suppressor to it very easily. Like I said, the 45 SD comes with an extended barrel for you to thread and put something like a suppressor or silencer on it, but because that barrel is constantly spinning back and forth, most of those silencers are going to either work themselves loose or they're going to tighten the other way and over tighten, and it'll fuse to the barrel. So there's really no good way to mount a suppressor to these just because of that rotation. And it's kind of a shame. It'd be a really cool platform to run a silencer on, but I haven't heard of anyone who's successfully done that. I read that Beretta figured out a way, but there just isn't a market for it, so they haven't really released the patents or something. And then, of course, reassembly is the opposite of disassembly, so I'll put that together. So I mentioned how the rotating barrel actually affects the shooting dynamics, and it really is a nice shooting gun. It's extremely soft. The first time I put a magazine through it, I was really impressed with how soft and even and flat shooting it was. And that's because of that rotating barrel system. It just barely has any recoil, easy to stay on target. Accuracy is great. It's just such a fun gun to shoot. And I'll show you the trigger pull, which is, I'll decock it first. Double action is very smooth, not overly heavy. Probably about 10 pounds, something like that, which isn't bad for a double action combat gun. But the smoothness is really the takeaway from it. It's just very smooth. It's a good double action trigger. Single action likewise. It's about 6 pounds according to my gauge. A little bit of take up, which isn't bad. That's pretty much standard. And then the brake, very crisp, very good brake. A little bit of over travel, but nothing too bad. Again, show you that brake. It barely moves once you hit that wall, which is the hallmark of a great trigger, in my opinion, is that crispness. Weight a little bit high, maybe 6 pounds, but it doesn't really feel that heavy when you're actually shooting it, and it's just so smooth and crisp that it's hard to really fault it. And I'll show you the reset 2 real fast, which is also not bad. Not that long, nice and audible. And it's right back at the wall again. So reset is also good. Overall, I think it's a great trigger, and I don't know why people try to bash it for that, because really it's not a bad trigger. I mean, if you're obsessed with Glocks and strikers only, then everyone always thinks that double actions are just the devil. But if you like double action, single action triggers, this is a very good one in my opinion, especially at the price point. For under $400, that's a tough trigger to beat at that price. Mine has been perfectly reliable at the range. I put about probably 600 rounds through it, which I know isn't a ton. I just have so many guns, it's hard to shoot them all, but 600 rounds is pretty decent for me. And I haven't had a single reliability issue with this in 9mm. I have heard that in 40, it's maybe a different story. In particular, the Maryland Police Department, they issued these to their officers, and they ended up ditching them because of reliability issues due to the magazines. And I've heard the story is that during training, they would drop the mags, they would fall out, land on concrete or whatever, and these plates would come loose. And then when they were carrying the guns, the plates would fall off or they would slide, and that the spring tension here would get all messed up and rounds would fall out and all sorts of other issues. So they ditched the guns because of that. That's my understanding, at least, of the story. But I can only speak to personal experience that this one in 9mm for my generic range purposes has been great. Not a single jam ever with any kind of ammo, from brass case, wolf, steel case stuff. You know, it's 115 grains, 124, whatever. It all runs great for me. So great reliability, great shooting, very soft. The bore axis is actually reasonably low also. It's lower than the 92 like I mentioned earlier. And you can really get a good hike up on there and make it even softer shooting. So recovery is just very quick with this gun. I've heard that the 45 is a little bit less pleasant. It doesn't seem to take advantage of this rotating barrel system quite as well as the 9 and the 45s. Everyone says that, or sorry, the 9s and the 40s. Everyone says that the 40s are one of the softest shooting 40s, and I believe it just because of how soft the 9 is, but I've heard that the 45s, I mean, don't quote me, but I've just heard that they recoil a little bit more. Not quite as remarkable. So in conclusion, for the price that you have to pay for one of these, which is usually under $400, I got it with actually a $50 Beretta rebate, and it ended up being about $350 out the door for me. It is just impossible to beat. For a new gun that performs this well, is this accurate, this reliable, great trigger, really soft shooting. They're just hard to find really any significant criticisms about the gun, especially at the price point. And I recommend pretty much anyone get one, because with the different size back straps, it'll fit anybody. Soft shooting. There are different sizes, so you can get different configurations and sizes. If you want to carry it, you can get the compact model. I've heard that the subcompact, even though it doesn't have the rotating barrel, that it's a great shooter too. Just overall, it's hard not to recommend this gun. And I see online, for some reason, people act like it's just the redhead stepchild of the Beretta family, and it's just tragic and all these things. It's really not. It's really underrated, and it's become one of my favorites. And I think people that actually give it a chance and shoot it a little bit, they generally come away with pretty favorable impressions, and I know I did. So that's the Beretta PX4 Storm in 9mm. It's one of my favorites, like I said, and it's just a great shooter, especially for the price. Great underrated value gun. So thanks for watching.